This is the Conservative American Message, hosted by the one and only Cam Lau. It's Saturday, December 10th, 2022, and thanks for tuning in for another week of the best politics podcast on Spotify. Who doesn't love the WNBA? Well, it turns out most Americans don't. I mean, they have incredibly low ratings, so maybe two wrongs can make a right? Mix the WNBA with the lowest rated president in U.S. history, and what could go wrong? Well, I'll tell you what could go wrong. Brittany Griner is a WNBA player who knelt for the national anthem, by the way. I mean, what do you expect? But she was returned to the United States on Friday after spending almost 10 months in Russian prison. She was arrested on drug charges after Russian authorities discovered that she had marijuana in her possession. She was sentenced to 9 years. Then, in a terrible trade deal, Biden gave up a convicted Russian arms dealer to Putin in exchange for Griner. Now, to me, that's bad enough. She went to another country and broke the law. Just because she's a celebrity does not warrant releasing legitimate, dangerous criminals. Also, I have to mention that she's black and a lesbian, and the only reason I mention that is because that's a big part of why anyone cares. Because clearly the government doesn't care about Paul Whelan, at least not as much as Brittany Griner. Paul Whelan is a U.S. Marine who has been held in Russian custody for espionage charges, which both he and U.S. officials deny. But even he isn't the only American wrongfully detained in Russia. Mark Fogel was arrested on possession of medical marijuana in August of last year. But only the elite are given special deals and rescued by Joe Biden. Leave our people behind seems to be a standard for the Biden administration. Afghanistan. No, really, Brittany Griner's an American hero, and we should probably make an American Girl doll after her. After all, American Girl doll is completely bought into the sexual mafia. They came out with a book titled A Smart Girl's Guide, Body Image. In the book, they promote transgender ideologies to young girls reaching puberty. It tells them that they can take medicine to pause their puberty so that they have more time to ponder on their gender identity. It even encourages talking to a doctor without their parents to discuss puberty blockers. These puberty blockers are the same drugs used to chemically castrate sex offenders. Just like last week, we continue to see wokeness infiltrate these companies and trick parents and consumers into allowing their children to be indoctrinated by the companies that have been trusted by families for decades. They truly want to sexualize kids because they're demented people who have sick desires and want to involve your children in their sexual fantasies. Just like last week, Pink Floyd said it best, leave them kids alone. If you want to see the results of what happens when these ideologies are fully embraced by our institutions, look no further than Loudoun County Public Schools in Virginia. In May of 2021, a young lady was sexually assaulted by a boy wearing a skirt who claimed to be a transgender and was in the girls' bathroom. This was at Stonebridge High School. The school covered it up and went on to hold a board meeting to pass policies to protect these transgender students' right to use the bathroom of their choosing. At this meeting, Scott Smith, the father of the victim, attempted to speak, but the school board wouldn't allow him to. The superintendent, Scott Ziegler, stated, "The predator transgender student or person simply does not exist. We do not have any record of assaults occurring in our restrooms." After that, they tried to adjourn the meeting, and the crowd erupted into chaos, and Scott Smith was arrested for disorderly conduct and spent 10 days in jail. If your daughter is raped and the powers that be refuse to take action, I would think you'd expect some disorderliness. This trans predator was simply moved to a different high school, where he went on to trap another girl in a classroom and assault her too. He's now been arrested. Republican Governor of Virginia Glenn Youngkin issued an executive order to investigate the school district in relation to the alleged cover-up of sexual assaults. A grand jury was appointed to conduct an investigation, and although they have yet to bring about any criminal charges at this time, in their report they are accusing the superintendent of knowing about the sexual assaults and lying to parents about it. And of course, some bad news out of Georgia this week. Herschel Walker was defeated by incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock, giving the Democrats a majority in the Senate. Walker's campaign was plagued by scandal after scandal. I don't believe the Senate runoff reflects the political landscape of the state of Georgia. Despite Walker's loss, Brian Kemp still smoked Stacey Abrams. I actually have a lot of confidence in the Republican momentum across the country. There are a lot of people out there trying to pin this loss on Trump. That's preposterous. One bad candidate endorsed by Trump does not mean that Trump is irrelevant now. Blaming Trump has been so ingrained into so many minds that apparently conservatives are starting to fall for it as well. The Republican establishment is a greater threat to our nation than the Democrats themselves. All of our institutions will stop at nothing to tear down Donald Trump. But what most of you don't realize is the exact same thing will happen to the next guy and the next guy and the next guy after that. Ron DeSantis will become a bad word just as easily as Donald Trump did. Well, that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? If so, we'd love to hear all about it. Hit us up on Instagram at The Conservative American Message and tell us what we're doing wrong. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.